to the Blink Weekly Newsletter, 101s with Bianca Lager, here to give you tips and advice on tricky career situations and business moves. So let's get into our advice question of the week. Question is, what advice do you have on how to work smarter and not harder as a leader? I'm a mom of two and have been in leadership roles for all of my children's lives. They're school age and we are very busy. What can I do to be more efficient in my role in life? This is the story of my life. I think maybe did I write this because I also have, although my kids are a little bit younger, I'm not sure what is going to be a busier era when they're both school age, or I have one toddler and one 5-year-old. They're both semi-toddlers. So I know what this is like, and I guess I did a little research on. I ever do research on this topic because I am a busy mom as well. I'm always looking for tips and tricks and new ways. I will say that, in running a company and selling a company, starting my own new company, I've hit a whole new level of juggling. So I think that the advice that I have here is a couple different views. The top view is we're going to talk about how to think about how you approach like your productivity. I also want to talk about how you approach your family life and how to organize kind of your kids' lives, your partner, spouse, husband, whoever it is that you're also trying to juggle as well, your marriage potentially. That there are ways that you can go about even managing your household, because generally speaking, there is sort of a CEO role, so to speak, to where, you're really everything bottlenecks through you. And I know me as a mom, that's how it is. My kids are super young and they just rely on me a lot. Heavy is the crown as a mom, as much. And honestly, my husband is probably the best version of equal parenting within our household. We really do pull joint weight, but I'm mom and the kids just need me, and so that's just the way it is. So we'll talk about that, and then we'll also kind of dive into your team, the way you run your team. As a leader, it's kind of a very big part of it too, because that's what is going to ultimately give you the most productivity at work. So really, this is all about teamwork, both within your household and within your team, and how everybody needs to step up their game. So this is really less about you stepping up your game and getting better, and it's about empowering everybody in your orbit to do their very best so that you can show up as your very best, both as the leader at work and a leader for your kids at home, because they need you as a leader as well. So one of my very favorite pieces of advice that I think I like make my entire personality is on the topic of relentless prioritization. And if you've been listening and reading the newsletter or watching my videos for a while, you probably heard me say this more than once, and I will not stop saying this because I think this is probably the best way to go about being more productive and just getting some control of the chaos that can be in your life when you are juggling your career and motherhood. So in terms of working smarter, not harder, major edits to your to-dos, okay? Major edits. And this is all about, if it's not an F yes, it's a no. That can get a little difficult with childhood and child rearing, because there's a lot of things that you need to optimize all the time. And there's a lot of voices out there, on the internet, hello, me, telling you what to do and how to do it. I think especially with motherhood, though, there is so much mom guilt, especially when you're working outside the home, because you're not 24/7 present and you don't have total control over the way that your kids eat, how much TV they watch, potentially, the clothes that they're wearing, all sorts of things, their sleeping habits. They're probably in childcare with another individual and you guys can be on the same page, but you're not physically the one doing it. all the time. And that can make you feel guilty. It can also make you feel like you have to work extra hard at a lot of these other things that people on the internet tell you how to do, how to feed your kid, how to get them to sleep, when to sleep, where to sleep, sleep with you, don't sleep with you, how much screen time or not screen time at all of the things that, how you're playing with your children, not playing enough, playing too much, all of the things, their development, it's so overwhelming. And you can absolutely feel like you have to optimize every single part of it. Now, this person wrote in, like, you're a veteran mom, like your kids are school age. So potentially you've let a lot of that go. I think in early childhood and early motherhood, there's so many voices and those are the things you're kind of battling with. But as your kids get older and you get to know them better and they just kind of become who they are, you're not going to get it all right. So the major edits on your to-do list have to do with letting go of some of the stuff that you're just not going to be awesome at in terms of raising your kids and in terms of showing up at work. There's so much that you can optimize. Okay. And there's so much that is just going to be simply functional. And the simply functional areas of your life are going to just have to be good enough. So constantly, relentlessly prioritizing what your priorities are. There's a book called Awaken Your Genius. I was going to say Jesus, so not Awaken Your Jesus, Awaken Your Genius by Ozen Varal. And one of my very favorite quotes is decide what's important and relentlessly prioritize it. Make it one of your to-dos to determine if you've got the right to-dos. I don't think there's a better piece of advice for you than that. What are your priorities? And make sure they are true priorities and that everything else isn't a priority. Now, what does that mean? It means that if you are struggling with something, or if there's something in your family, or your child needs a little extra attention, or whatever is going on, that is the priority. And all these other peripheral priorities, they're just going to have to wait. They're just going to have to wait until they make it up the roadmap and make it up the list of things that you need to deal with. And that's just the way it is. So being relentless with that priority planning translates to family planning and how you manage your household as well. What really, really works for me, and getting into the topic of like, okay, how do we organize things at home? A family digital workspace is the best thing that you can do. And if you haven't done this already, absolutely do this. So I like Google. It's about creating an email address, a Google account for your family. We use our last name as part of the email address, but essentially what it is, with Gmail, obviously you get an email, a calendar, a drive, all the things, right? So my husband and I use that calendar to communicate with each other. We also use Google Tasks, which helps us plan our to-dos for our family. So it has so many apps, and of course it's free, right? For a low amount of storage. I mean, but you can upgrade that storage, put all your family photos in there. I mean, it's a really, really, really useful tool to organize your family lives and workflow. Your kids probably might be playing sports or doing activities and things. So the calendars can get wild. I don't think anybody survives in motherhood without a digital calendar. So I'm probably telling you something that isn't new, but for anyone out there that is getting into this world or hasn't, crossed that yet, not just using your own calendar, your work calendar, but giving permission so that you can share those calendars with the other calendars, but using that so you can centrally organize also all the conversations that happen about your household bills, about your children, about their school, about their care, providers. And that way, this is how you collaborate with your partner if you're lucky enough to have a partner or somebody that is also involved in the raising of your children. Because this is a way, and even if you don't have kids, honestly, like you're running a household and you have a partnership or a marriage, like this is just necessary. Like it should not fall on one person to handle all these things. You should be able to co-manage these things and understand like, hey, there's an email in there. I read it already, but make sure that you read it. It's about, my kid's name's Henry. Henry's, school, whatever, they're having a thing. And so this is just a really quick and easy, nice way to know how what is going on at all times. And it can get a little tricky, but you really just do have to communicate and understand that it's like, hey, keeping this email in here, I want you to have eyes on it. Delegate responsibilities, who's going to take care of what bill and things like that. But you know if you ever need access to these things, your electricity bill, the mortgage, all these things, like, use that email address as a login too. And it really helps for both of you to be able to get in there and get things accomplished really easily. I cannot emphasize enough the to-do list aspect, having a digital to-do list. I mean, this is something that you need for both home and work. We'll talk about it in the lens of the work in a little bit, but for home, this is extremely important. My husband and I actually also use an app called To Do, and it gives us the ability to say, like, here's the grocery list. This is the things that Henry needs for school on Monday because it's Spirit Week or whatever. So this is a shared way that you can communicate on your computer, on your phone, wherever you. Most of the time we're on our phones, right? So we can digitally keep track of these things and understand when these things happen and when they don't. And just kind of notes, like, I take notes in there to be like, oh, I got to ask him about this, or we got to make sure we talk about such and such. And then my husband literally and I have meetings, like, we have one-on-ones. And so where we're like, what's the order of business? Like, it's our agenda is in there so we can get through things. And most of the time we don't have a whole lot to talk about which is nice because now we can just, like, hang out and enjoy each other because we've communicated on the app already and in our email and all these things. So we already know these things are going on. We don't really waste any precious time with the business of running our household. We are, able to just, like, hang out with each other as much as you can hang out with each other when you have two extremely small children that need you all the time. But these are your business conversations, and eventually, and your kids might be prepared for this, you bring your kids into those meetings too, and you have family meetings, and everybody needs to be on the same page and understand what's needed for the household. Does such and such have playoffs next week? Are we all have to go there to support? Like, what are we doing as a family? How are we approaching this? Have we been watching too much TV as a family? What are we going to do instead to, like, replace these activities? Yada, yada. These are all things that your kids absolutely can participate in and can help with their growth and independence and really just being a part of this community that you're developing at home. It really, really, really helps alleviate the pressure on the mom. Like I said, it's just such a heavy job. And so we have to share those things and we have to delegate these things out. Okay, so speaking of work, though, with your work life, couple things there, and I have so many specific, I could talk about this, and I do really, this is what I coach people on quite a bit, is their team development and team productivity. Meetings are a really important place and time for you to make your work life more efficient, smarter, not harder. Having, and it sounds like such easy advice, but not a lot of people do it really well, is having consistent agendas that aren't just kind of one-off what we're talking about today, but they're always tying in to the company goals, the department goals, your team goals, and individual goals. And we're always in alignment. So the things that we're talking about are always a priority. Again, it goes back to that relentless prioritization. If we're talking about things that are outside of the goals or what we really should be focusing on or working on, then why are we talking about it? What is the distraction? And if there's a lot of these distractions that keep coming up, what can we do about it to solve those distractions? So that's really the reason, not just for the agenda, is to not just make sure we can be prepared when we show up to the meeting, because that's an important part of the agendas too. When we have a digital agenda that somebody sees there and somebody sees on my end, we can both prepare our notes, prepare our information so that we're able to, get to the point really quickly, move on and get through things really fast. But again, relentlessly prioritizing the conversations that you have in all your one-on-ones and all your team meetings to make sure that it's also communicating to your team what the relevancy is of the topics that we're talking about to our overall goals. It helps people be really tied into their work and bought into their work, so it feels like they're making a contribution towards something greater. We all need that reminder. You need that reminder. Your team needs that reminder. And everybody, even back to the family meetings, that's also another reason to have them, is that we all need to understand that we're working for a greater purpose and greater good. On that note, there is and send meeting recaps, meeting agendas, meeting recaps. Same idea, same relational, communication that you have with the goals and stuff like that. Communication, giving transparency as appropriate to your daily activities. So that's why I love using digital to-do lists. And if you find one that's great, sharing that across your team, being really, really clear on your calendar what you're working on so that your team knows what your priorities are. Make sure that they understand where your energy is going towards and when you are focused on what, because otherwise they will come at you with distractions. They will say, I mean, inevitably they will anyway, but when they are clearly communicated with what you're working on, maybe if you need to have a hard focus, it really helps them minimize the distractions on your end, and it helps them understand where they need to support you and what the most important things of the day, of the week, of the month are for you. You know, that openness and transparency with company goals, challenges, successes, all of it is very helpful. If you cannot communicate about the hard things as well as the successes, then you're not going to get on the same page with your team, and they're not going to be able to support you when you need extra help. Your bandwidth runs low, and so you need that from your team so that they can understand. That being said, I mean, it's an easy one, but time blocking obviously really, really helps. Don't just think about it in terms of like, okay, I blocked this off my calendar, but think about it in terms of grouping up tasks, grouping things up so that it's like, if you have, let's say you're running a marketing department and have, ad stuff that needs to be done weekly, or things that you need to review, you put that all in one area where you're dealing with those. You have your one-on-ones with the person who's running your ads or your agency or whatever, like trying to group it up as much as possible. And the biggest overall, like the kind of long-term thing, these are all kind of daily pieces of advice so far, but there's also a bigger picture of your long-term success, your long-term working smarter, not harder. You have to work on it every day, but you don't see the dividends necessarily immediately. Sometimes you will, sometimes you won't. But what I'm getting at is optimizing the talent on your team, trusting and amplifying the intelligence and the capabilities of the people on your team is really the only way you're going to work smarter, not harder. The way that they step up and do better at their jobs will not only improve your performance and your team's performance, but it will also improve how you show up at work. You won't have to worry. They're doing great. They are, you are their coach and the person that's pushing them along rather than managing the tasks that they do. So set your expectations really high for your team. And have those expectations be that you can do great without my involvement. I know that you can, and work towards that. It's not always going to happen overnight, but if you can work towards minimizing your involvement with their great work, that's what's going to set you up success. So you really do need to have some observation time with your team to make sure you understand what everybody does great. They're not all going to do, none of us do everything great. So understanding really closely what tasks people are really naturally good at, what they complete most easily, what their natural capabilities are. It's sort of the same thing with motherhood, right? You're watching your children. They're going to gravitate towards certain activities and certain things. And we want to nurture and encourage that so that they can build confidence and they can really, engage with their work or their activities at a really enjoyment level because they're good at it. And that always feels good for all of us when we're doing things that we enjoy and we're good at. So identifying those innate abilities to bring out that talent on your team and enable their excellence is really what it's all about. Enabling excellence within your team will allow you to be an excellent leader, but also not have to have the constant difficulty of fixing something, fixing mistakes, getting in there and being really involved in the weeds all the time. Again, this doesn't happen easily. You might have a couple members on your team who is not there yet. It takes time. It takes time to build this. It takes time to identify when somebody's just not going to cut it and make different choices. But you start strategizing on their capabilities and each person's potential. It unlocks crazy levels of scaling up your productivity. Having that environment that's conducive to a place where ideas surface, we're innovative, we're doing our best work. Man, who doesn't want to show up to a job like that? And you will worry far less about working smarter, not harder, because you're going to be. And the key here, I want to remind everybody, is not so that you can do more, so that you can add more things to your plate. Again, we're relentlessly prioritizing. And one of those priorities should be to enjoy yourself, enjoy your life, take a chill pill, relax. Trust me, this is a hard piece of advice for me. So I'm saying it as somebody who does not take a chill pill a lot, but it is an important thing to remember. Okay, I've really eaten up a lot of time on the clock here, but a really thorough conversation, a really good time to really think about, how do we work smarter, not harder? And again, editing that to-do list, relentlessly prioritizing what's important to you, and prioritizing joy in your life is going to make everybody in your family and yourself healthy and happier. So thanks again, once again, everybody, for joining the Blink Weekly Newsletter. This has been your one-on-one with Bianca Lager, and I'll see you.